Hello there, one and all, and welcome to episode 4 of our masterclass series here on the Persolaise YouTube channel. The series where we look at different aspects of the industry in a little bit more depth than we normally do in the Love at First Scent series, the more long-running series on the channel. What we've done so far on the series is looked very, very specifically at ingredients, and that's what we're going to be doing in episode 4 as well, focusing on 2 ingredients. So for the benefit of those of you who may not have seen the first 3 episodes, even though I would urge you to go back and watch them, the idea with these ones is that we're joined very, very kindly by Remi Pulverail from near Annecy in France, who gives up his time to give us his insights and his expertise into various ingredients. Particularly focusing on their supply chains and the problem that the industry may be facing in obtaining some of these ingredients. And the kind of structure that we're following is based on the structure of his own perfumes from his brand, Les Indemodables, which you can see here. And the pairing of the ingredients that we look at is based on the pairings in which they appear in various scents. So today we're going to be talking about vanilla and cocoa, which is the sort of pairing that is present in his Vanille Havane perfume. Having said all of that, I should then say thank you very much for coming along, Remi. How are you doing today?
Very good, very well. I'm very happy to be back here with you. I think it's the 4th session or 3rd or 4th?
Number 4 already. Number 4. I know that the time has gone really, really quickly, and I love seeing all of the flowers behind you. Now, as per usual, people have lots and lots of questions that they want to ask. Keep the questions coming. I will try to keep an eye on the chat in the background and highlight a few to put to Remi as we're going along. And if you would like to say where it is that you're watching from, it's always good to know because I find it really fascinating. If you would like to smell along with us, this kit is actually available to purchase if you're interested in buying it, and you will be able to find at least 2 links in the video description below for where you can buy it for yourself. You've got the ingredients here in a kind of a wax form, which keeps them preserved for a little bit longer. Anyway, enough of the preamble, enough of the introduction. Today, as a few people have pointed out, we have got a very delicious episode, a very, very kind of gourmand episode, even though the scent that with the perfume that we're relating it to is not particularly a gourmand, because we are going to be talking about cocoa and the ingredient that supposedly pops up in so many perfumes, vanilla. But I thought we would start with cocoa, just to keep everybody waiting for the vanilla, and I can already see a few questions coming through. So, cocoa. In the information that you sent me very, very helpfully before the broadcast, Remi, you made this distinction between the fact that vanilla actually is considered to be quite a small industry in comparison with cocoa, because I think you talked about vanilla being produced in a sort of range of thousands of tons, whereas cocoa, I think you said, was millions of tons or something like that. Or
yeah.
So what percentage of that goes into perfume? Because cocoa is not actually a very, very common perfumery ingredient, is it?
No. Yeah. First, yes, that's 2 very interesting supply chains. Because as you said, vanilla, even if it's known by everybody all over the world, the natural vanilla remains a niche market. We talk about 2,000 tons, let's say, between 2,000 and 3,000 tons, when cocoa is 1,000 times bigger. We talk about millions of tons. So you see, it's very interesting because cocoa is really a market that you could compare to tea, to all the big commodities. So it's a kind of industrial agriculture, where vanilla remains family agriculture and small-scale agriculture. So we are really in 2 very different model of agriculture. You can compare cocoa also to soy, to corn, to you see all these big commodities. And the consequence behind is that these commodities are stock listed. Cocoa is listed when vanilla is not. So you see, it's also a big difference because you have the financial markets behind who are manipulating at some point the prices, and where the interest of the farmer is totally forgotten and
Right.
comes at last. And you see, cocoa is interesting because the main producer in the world by far is the Ivory Coast.
Right.
With Ghana also, which is also a big producer. But these guys are producing more than two-thirds of the world production. And the quality, of course, big volumes is a very low quality. So that is used by big companies like Nestle, like Barry Callebaut, like so it's really mass market chocolate for mass market.
Right, because the vast majority of it is for the food industry, isn't it?
Yes, for the food industry.
Huge percentage.
The perfumery is really using a very little part of it because the extract that we produce for the perfume industry are quite expensive from the cocoa beans, and therefore, given the budget that the perfumers have, it's very difficult to use. Alors, having said that, and this is a bit the purpose of our lab as well, we, even in this supply chain, which is massive, we have tried, and this is our objective for all the supply chain we are working on, we have strived to really identify some small cocoa origins. As you see in the Vanilla Van, you have the Colombian origin. So we did a partnership with a small cooperative. We also use the Trinidad origin. So we have identified some very qualitative producing countries with a small farmer community. And here you see we are in the process again of a niche supply chain. And from that, we produce our extract, but really, and we pay the cocoa beans maybe 4 or 5 times more than the, let's say, the normal price of the bulk of the market. But we don't care because we really look for the quality. So you see, even, and now that's what we call the specialty, for instance, chocolate. And you have the same trend in the coffee, where the people now try to identify some more niche origins and really to value these crops. And that's a very good trend for the farmers because they can sell it more expensive and really we can make the difference between the good quality and the poor quality. As in the past, it was not at all the case. In the past, all the origins were blended into one industrial quality, and you could not make the difference between the different grades. So now I think
I definitely want to talk about the sort of grades that you use and what you sent me, but just to kind of still keep with the big picture a little bit.
Yeah.
Is it possible to even calculate what percentage of the global cocoa production is used in perfumery? It must be tiny.
Oh, it's less than 5%. It's maybe 1 or 2%. It's nothing.
Okay.
It's nothing because you see the the absolute that is used by some perfumers cost over, let's say, 1,000 or 2,000 euros. So you really enter into the category of the perfume ingredients that only a very few houses can afford to use.
For 1,000 or 2,000 euros per, I guess you always mean per kilo.
Sorry?
When you say 1,000 to 2,000 euros, you mean per kilogram?
Per kilo. Yes,
per kilo.
per kilo.
Okay.
Yes, it's per kilo.
Yeah, so that does put it in the in the sort of higher bracket, doesn't it?
The classical perfume you have on the market, the fragrance budget for the perfumer is below 50 euros per kilo. You can imagine that you cannot use cocoa.
No. Now, one thing that I noticed as well that you when you were sort of set out the process of the production of it was that this business of the fermentation of the beans is very important and very tricky, and also the drying of the beans is tricky. You know, if you dry them too quickly, then this happens, or if you dry them too slowly, then this happens. I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about that and also explain whether there are any problems that arise with this drying process.
Yeah, like like for many natural raw materials, you have, and especially for vanilla and cocoa, but vanilla is even more complex and longer. But for cocoa, yes, you have a process from the harvesting of the beans and then the fermentation process, which is very important. But you see, that's always the same. When you manipulate thousands of tons and doing this process, you cannot really look after the details. So that's why this process of fermentation and drying, when it's done industrially, you have a poor quality at the end. But yes, the fermentation is really the chemical reaction that will release then the flavor and the aromatic molecules. So it's very important in the in the way you will get the flavor or the olfactive profile of the extract. So that's why this is something that we are monitoring very carefully. And then after the drying, you have also the roasting process, which is like for coffee, which is also important. And all these small steps until the beans are roasted, because this is the last process before it is grinded into powder, and then we proceed to extraction to get the so our ultrasound extraction system to get the extract that the perfumer will use.
No, and I definitely want to talk about your ultrasound process as well as a reminder of that. So with cocoa, what are the sort of problems? I'm guessing the problems are not with drug cartels and criminals and mafias and things like, or maybe there are, I don't know. What are the sort of issues around cocoa?
No. But let's say that in a country like the Ivory Coast, it's you can imagine it's very simple to understand. Is that the population and the farmers, because it's a cocoa, as you can imagine, in these countries, is not used in the country, so it's a product only for export.
Right.
First. So the government, of course, get a lot of profit in terms of tax and etc. to have these raw materials exported. But the problem is that it push the farmers to go in a kind of a monoculture. So all of them, most of the time, produce only cocoa, and they have less space and time to grow some feedstock that will help feeding them, because that's also important. And the problem is that when the international prices that are manipulated by the stock exchange is very low, all this population are starving. Because you see, when you have a basket of products that you grow or cultivate, you can sometimes have a good price, a bad price, and you see you can on average get a kind of revenue. But when the price is really slumping or declining very fast, the revenues comes almost to zero. And you can imagine that when you have only this monoculture to make a living, it's a real tragedy. And that's here that you see the fair trade is very vicious system, because the fair trade basically is to say you will be paid 10% more than the, let's say, the market price, which is good when the price is high, but when the price is close to zero, 0 plus 10% remains close to zero. So you see, it's not the good solution. So that's why all the program I started with this population in the different country. One of my objectives has always been to help them also diversify the revenues by making several products for us or for other markets, but that the people do not depend only on one single revenue and one single crop.
So, and I think this was the one where you talked about, I can't remember whether this was vanilla or cocoa, but I think it may have been cocoa. You said that they also grow cloves. Is that right? Or was that vanilla?
Yes. Alors, yes, clove. Alors, for instance, in Indonesia, you see, that's interesting, because where you have the patchouli, some people grow in the meantime some coffee or cocoa or some other commodities. So yes, that's something that should be supported.
Now, the one thing that I also was struck by in the information you sent was that, we're talking about this as being such a massive industry, and tons and tons and tons of the stuff being made for the food industry. And yet it seems that, according to one of the reports you sent me, that there is also a shortage of cocoa beans in some places, with some people not being able to meet the demand that is being placed on them. So what's happening there?
Alors, it's happening that the climatic conditions, as you know, are getting more and more difficult to forecast, with some droughts, with some flooding. So sometimes the production is much lower than expected, and therefore the prices increase, or there is some speculation. And that's why it's very unstable from year to year between overproduction and shortage. But even shortage is not good for the producer, because you see, maybe you get a better revenue, but when the production is 50 or 70% down, at the end of the day, it's good for nobody. So the problem with the stock market is that it's a very short-term decision and prices. And as you know, and as I said the last time we talked, the agriculture is really a long-term process. When you start growing cocoa plantation or coffee or whatever, it's an investment of at least 5 years. So you see, you need time to make a little revenue and to of course, when these markets are linked to the stock exchange, all these elements are not at all taken into account, and that's why the population making a living from that are very fragile. And the second aspect is just like, for instance, the palm oil, the cocoa being now a massive crop, especially in countries like the Ivory Coast. You have very big properties that are structured and that grows thousands of hectares in cocoa, and the farmers, the families, are just employees of these huge farms, and they are not anymore independent, and they are just a bit employees of a huge structure, and the living standards are very difficult also for these populations. So that's why on our side, we only work with small producing country and small cooperative to make sure that the people are still independent and that we are not supporting at some point these massive farms and industrial business, you see.
Fascinating. Now, we should absolutely devote some time to talking about the cocoa extract or the cocoa material that you use. And you have very kindly sent me some, and I'm going to dip a blotter into it, but I've smelt it before. It is really, really extraordinary. It's extraordinary because it's kind of familiar cocoa, but it's also so full of surprising facets. But it says here that it's an ultrasound extract, and you have talked about the ultrasound extracts with me before. So maybe you could just give us a very, very quick reminder, a totally idiot-proof reminder. So, imagine I know nothing at all about how perfume materials are created. What is an ultrasound extract?
Alors, first, to get and to concentrate the aromatic molecules that interest the perfumer, because this is the objective, we mix the raw material with a solvent that helps capturing all the interesting aromatic molecules. First, we do not use solvents coming from the petrochemical industry. All the perfumers today still use the hexane, which is a petroleum-derived solvent. So we use a green solvent first.
So I literally take my cocoa beans and I put them in this solvent.
Yes, okay. Ratio 10% more or less. And then when you use the ultrasound extraction system, the advantage is that you will make the extraction much faster and at a very low temperature. Most of the time we extract between 10 and 20 degrees, which protect really the raw material, because usually when you make this kind of extraction, you will be between 50 and 60 degrees for a much longer time. And of course, when you heat the raw material, you will destroy some very sensitive aromatic molecules. So the objective of the ultrasound, it's a kind of wave, is that it will help capturing more efficiently these aromatic molecules in a shorter time and at lower temperature.
It's literally the cocoa bean in the solvent, and they're just bombarded with sound.
Yes.
And this releases the...
Yes.
And then you have to do a kind of regular... How do you then do the separation from the solvent?
there are many parameters that we need to fix, which is the temperature, the time length of the extraction. So you have 6 or 7 parameters that we adjust. And then you evaporate the solvent, of course. When the solvent has captured all the aromatic molecules, you evaporate the solvent and you get what you have here, this small extract, highly concentrated, which has an incredible smell because of this process, which is first green and second, much more efficient. And at this very low temperature, we really keep all the interesting aromatic profile of the beans.
And this smells extraordinary. I would urge anybody, if you can get hold of a few drops of this stuff from Remi's lab, because it has got that very, very bitter chocolatey feel, you know, like a kind of really, really good quality 85% or 90% chocolate. But it also feels almost like meaty and burnt and heading, like it feels like you could make a really, really interesting leather perfume with this, or
exactly.
It's really, really fascinating.
Yeah, you have many facets. You have also some fruity facets. It's a very leathery. It's a bit creamy after evaporation as well. And no, it's we used it in a vanilla van at 3% dosage, which is a huge, especially taking into account the cost of the extract. But it really brings something that is fascinating. And Antoine Lee, I think, was really amazed first to smell this kind of extract that he never used before. And yes, it's really overdosage in the vanilla van, so you can see the impact in the perfume.
So right now, if I had a bottle of a cocoa material which has not been produced with the ultrasound technique, how different would it be smelling? What would I be smelling that's not quite the same?
First, the olfactive profile will be less rich and faceted. But the second very important aspect, of course, Dariush, is the selection of the beans and the process of the beans. So this is the origin of the beans that we have been using as well. The roasting process that we have been controlling, it's not a standard roasting process, but we did the monitoring of the roasting process by doing many tests. So all the steps from the green cocoa beans until what we used in extraction has been really tailor-made, and the result is not only the extraction technology. This is all the process of selection and fine-tuning of each parameters from the farmer and the agricultural side until the roasting and the extraction.
And you said as well before that you referred to a vintage cocoa crop. And yes. I wonder what you mean by the word vintage in this context. What's a vintage crop?
The vintage crop is that in some countries, the farmers and the authorities try to reintroduce some old botanical variety of cocoa.
So actually old plants.
Yes.
Older varieties of plants.
You have the Trinitario, which is a very famous species that is, you have GMO, a lot of GMO species that are more providing more yield, because the people are looking for the yield before the taste, unfortunately. So yes, some countries and some cooperatives try to reintroduce some local farmer variety. Sometimes you have a few plants and trees you see, and vines that are still there from a very, very ancient time, and they recultivate these plants to develop another cultivar than the classical one that they can buy on the market, you see. So that's also an interesting process. And the place where we are sourcing in Colombia with our friend, the very famous chocolate maker, they are doing this kind of work. So probably in the future, we will have a different cultivar. So others, cocoa extract with very different olfactive profile, which is our interest at the end of the day.
Fascinating. Let's take a question from a viewer. This is a question from Cloudy, who says, is there such a thing as synthetic cocoa molecules that doesn't require any actual cocoa to produce?
That's fun. Huh? At every session, we have someone asking if we can do the same with the synthetic. No, unfortunately, fortunately, not unfortunately, fortunately, it's impossible for the reason that these extracts are composed of hundreds of molecules. So if we wanted to reconstitute the complexity of the flavor, it would be much more expensive than the natural extract. Alors, of course, maybe one day someone will identify a synthetic molecule that will more or less smell the cocoa, but it will never have the facets of these such complex ingredients. And you can smell it. And when you smell it, it's already a perfume as such, Darius.
No, absolutely.
No,
and it's
not possible.
Say again.
Fortunately, it's not possible to replace the natural.
The profile is extraordinary. You know how the combination of chili with chocolate is very, very interesting and very, very enjoyable. Also, and I'm sure you've done it. I'm sure lots of people watching have done it. Putting some cocoa into like a stew which has got lots of beans in it, and onions, tomatoes, beans. Putting some cocoa in produces a really wonderful effect because it has got these slightly vegetal, meaty, stewy, kind of like protein type facets, which is really, really, really fascinating.
You can cook some salty dishes with cocoa, and it's very interesting. Might it be meat or something else? But yes, in Mexico there are a lot of recipes with cocoa inside. Huh?
I'm not surprised. I'm not at all surprised. Okay, that's fantastic, and thank you so much, everybody, for watching and for all the questions. Special thanks to David for that comment there, and enjoy wearing your Habit Rouge, David. We should move on to vanilla, because I'm sure we could do several programs, not just half of one show on vanilla. There will be already a few questions have come in about vanilla, and I'm not even sure where to start with the vanilla, but I think maybe I will start with one thing that you said. You said in the information that you sent me beforehand that you consider it to be perhaps the most complex supply chain.
Yeah.
Are you able to express quite briefly what is it that makes it so complex? I know that one of the factors is time, but it's not just time, it's also expertise. So what is it that makes it so complicated?
It's totally crazy, Darius. You harvest the green vanilla beans in June. You can imagine?
Yeah.
Then you have a process where you boil it for a few minutes, and then you have the drying process. You drying under the sun for a few days, which is very important. And by the way, in July, when you have some rains, you can imagine this million of beans which are on a very big places to dry into the sun, and sometimes you have some short showers, and the people need to take the beans with the trucks and take it to 50 kilometers or 100 kilometers to have it dried in a place where it's sunny. But that's the process. And then after that, once the beans are more or less a bit dried, and not yet, they are still a very high moisture content, then you have maybe 3 months time during you will have what we call a kind of maturation process. So the people, they put it into a very big cartons, kind of.
So some sort of container,
container, kind of wood container, something like that. And they visit the beans every 2 or 3 days, Darius, for almost 2 or 3 months time. It means that every day, sometimes it's 100 kg or 500 kg of these containers. You take out all the beans and you control the beans, Darius, one by one with the hand like that. Well, unfortunately, mine are a bit dried, but each beans, you touch it with your hands to check the moisture content.
By hand?
By hand. Each one. If it's too humid, you keep it in the to make the maturation process. And if it's dry enough, you isolate the beans and put it to the next step.
So this is partly where the expertise comes in, because it's not possible for a machine. It's not possible for a machine to do that.
If you don't make properly this sorting of the beans, which are still too humid, and the one which have been a bit more dry, it can mold all the container.
Right. The mold will infect all of the others.
So it will kill the quality of your 500 kg of beans. So this work is very important, and it lasts for weeks before you get to the maturation. And then when the beans have the right level of humidity, then you can classify it by size, and you have the one which are split and non-split. So you have, let's say, 7 or 8 different grades of beans between the cuts, which are the cheaper one, and the gourmet, and the black beans, very nice, which are not split in the middle, which are the most expensive one for the chef. But you see, all this process until the beans are ready to export takes around 6 months, Darius. So you harvest in June, and then you export in around December. And last but not least, if we talk about the flowering, you know how it works, huh? Basically, you need to pollinate by hand, flower by flower. Because, as you know, the vanilla is coming from Mexico, and over there you had the insect that was making the pollination automatically. And when it was vanilla was introduced in the Bourbon Island and then Madagascar, of course, you didn't have the right insect. So the pollination.
So that's what I was going to ask you, because I know that the insect didn't exist there in the Réunion Island, but it doesn't exist in Madagascar either.
I know.
I'm just curious, I'm not a biologist, but I'm just thinking, why didn't they also take the insect?
Yes, that's a question. Yeah, I don't know if he could survive or not, but anyway,
no, but
because it was in the maybe 18 or 19th century.
So in case people didn't catch it, every single flower has to be fertilized, pollinated by hand.
Yes, to put in contact the male and the female part of the flower, like for the work of what the bees are doing basically for our flowers in the garden. So you see, all these crazy manual tasks that you do from the flowering, so it means in March, April, until the exportation of the beans, it's unreal. It's funny because there was a flavor house, because now you have all these industries that want to make everything clean, flavor grade, so without the people touching the vanilla beans, for instance. Because some people, when they made the audit of some people prepare curing the beans, we call it to cure the vanilla beans. They said, it's not clean, it goes into the food industry, and the people, they manipulate the beans with the hand, it's dirty. So they gave them some gloves, you see, plastic gloves, to make it with the plastic gloves. And at the end of the day, it came out that the smell and the sweat, the sweat of the hand is a part of the flavoring of the beans.
Gosh.
And they could figure out that with the plastic gloves, the vanilla profile was not good at all.
Fascinating.
So back to the normal process.
There's a comment here from SMC saying, "Wow, I'll be thinking about all the hands that have touched my vanilla beans next time I use some." Yeah, but it's amazing. We don't think of that sort of thing. Now, also, you mentioned that there was a vanilla crisis in 2003. What was that?
No, there are many crises. Yes, 2003, and then you had a very big one in 2000 that lasts for 3 or 4 years until 2014, 15, and
But is that a crisis with the harvest?
Basically, the problem is that Madagascar is still producing 80% or more of the world production. So the price went from $25 a kg to $500.
Right.
Because when there was a bad crop conditions, so lower volume, all the international buyers, they were they were scared not to have the volumes they need. So that's why there was a lot of speculation, and there was almost no other producing countries able to supply the volumes that were required by the market. And especially, you see, these expertise that I described, there are very, very few countries where the farmers have this tradition, because this tradition, you get it from your parents, your grandparents, and it's really a long know-how to get. And you cannot just learn in a couple of months to a farmer to cure the vanilla beans. The people I'm working with in Madagascar and Comores, they are doing that for 5 generations. So I can tell you that when the babies are born, they put it directly the first day in a vanilla bag. You see? And it's really a part of the tradition of the family.
I want to talk about that side of things as well in a moment, but we have to spend a few minutes talking about vanillin, because of course a lot of the time when brands tell us that there is vanilla in the perfume, not even perfume brands, a lot of the time when we're having an ice cream which is supposed to be a vanilla ice cream, it's not actually vanilla a lot of the time, is it? It's vanillin. What's the sort of cost relationship between vanilla and vanillin?
Well, vanillin is the molecule that you find into the vanilla beans at a level of 2 or 3%. So you see, it's really one of the flavor or olfactive molecules that you can find in the 200 or 300 aromatic molecules that you have in vanilla. So you see vanillin. Alors, this is the cheap, of course, the price range is it's 100 times cheaper than the vanilla extract, the vanillin, but of course it's used in the very, let's say, cheap yogurt, any product that you find worldwide on the market, might it be biscuits, yogurts, ice creams, or whatever. Alors, of course, like in every market, you have some niche brands that are going to use real vanilla beans into the flavoring, but it's really probably 1% of the market, but the 99% of the market, might it be perfume or food, is using synthetic vanillin.
Yeah, okay.
Because the vanilla absolute in perfumery costs more than 5,000 euro a kg. So we come back to the same problem as cocoa or whatever, expensive natural ingredients. The perfumers today cannot use it. They cannot use it. Alors, for our perfumes, as you know, Darius, we don't have this kind of problem. We put 9 or 10%, I think, of into our formula. But I mean, for the big perfume brands, there is no question to put even 1% of this kind of very expensive ingredient in a fragrance formula.
And so have you found that actually, if people haven't smelt a real vanilla before and then you show them a vanilla, do some of them say, but this is not vanilla? Because they're so used to vanillin.
It's very strange, because you see the market in the world that is the most expert in vanilla is USA. Which is very bizarre, because as you know, the junk food is mainly coming from USA. You see what?
Okay, I'm going to let you say that, and if anybody watching from America wants to disagree,
I have nothing against my American friends, because I have friends over there. But the fact is that you see the industrial food really in the USA, that's a massive problem, even with the obesity and etc. So everybody knows that. But the ice cream, the best ice cream I have ever eaten in my life, was in the United States, not in Europe and not in France, because the people over there, I think, have the taste of the authentic vanilla in their mouth. And that's why the USA is the first market in the world for the flavor, the natural vanilla flavor for the ice cream in particular, but not only for some cakes, for some other dessert or whatever. But this is America that is using the highest level in food of authentic vanilla beans. It's not Europe.
So now I've never been to the USA, but I don't know if I've ever mentioned to you, I am I'm really, really crazy about ice cream. So now I have my final reason, one of many reasons, but my final reason to finally go over. Somebody here, Omar, is saying Los Angeles has amazing ice cream. So I'm off to California next time. Now, I dipped my blotters into the two that you sent me. You sent me here a Madagascar Vanilla Absolute and also one from your the Comoro Islands, your Grand Cru. So tell us about that special one, because that's got an interesting story behind it. Is that the one that is actually called the Vanille Mauvais? Is that right? So bad vanilla.
Yes.
But there's a really, really good story that goes with that. You should tell us that story.
First, the best soil for the vanilla is a volcanic soil, which is the Bourbon. The original Bourbon soil was far better than Madagascar, because the east coast of Madagascar, which is producing 80% of the worldwide vanilla, has not this kind of soil, and Comoros has this kind of soil. So, but Comoros, you see, is maybe 10 or 15% of the production, of the total production. So it's a small, I would say, producing country. But for me, with the best quality of vanilla in the world is coming from Comoros, because there is the adequate soil. The second thing that we need to say is that the curing process is a bit different from Madagascar. I'm not going to enter the details. So that makes also a slight difference in the cured vanilla beans. And for the very rare quality that we have, yes, this is a vintage crop that people harvest very late on the vines, around September, and that's maybe 1 or 2% of the production in Comoros, so very, very rare. And it has a very unique flavor and smell that is very confectionery and very sweet, less leathery and rum than or dry fruits than the Madagascar grade. And you will see when you smell both. And we did an infusion with this exceptional Mauvais grade. Alors why the people called it Mauvais? Because basically this harvest in September, the parents were leaving only a few beans on the vines for the kids. The kids were harvesting the few on the vines in September before going to school, and they were bringing these beans to the traders to get a little bit of money to buy the what they need to go to school, the bag or
so just a few beans left for them for a little bit of extra pocket money, basically.
Extra money, you see, when they go to school in September. And the traders were telling them, no, it's a mauvais vanilla. It means bad in French, mauvais.
Yes.
And why did they say that? Because, of course, the flavoring is very different from the normal grade. And
because it's been on the plant for so long, right?
Yes, and because of all these specificity, and that's what we enjoyed a lot in this story and in this in the flavor profile and the olfactive profile, is that it's so different from the classical vanilla that we know, and that makes it very interesting.
And it is, as I'm smelling it here. I mean, that description that you gave is perfect, because the first one, the Madagascar one, is beautiful as well, but it's drier, it's more leathery. Yeah. It feels almost like it's heading in the direction of maybe something smoky or carbon, charcoal.
Yeah, if you would give it a color, Dariush, it would be black, more dark. You see,
yes,
dark sure. Brown, or you see.
Whereas the Grand Cru one is just like, like a really, really perfect sort of vanilla cream that you would immediately want to put like in a millefeuille or something like that and have it with. It's really, really beautiful. So who are the farmers that you produce these with? And the other question I wanted to ask you as well, in relation to the farmers, over the years that you have been working with them, trying to support them, have you seen some very, very definite changes in their life, their living conditions?
Yes, because when you see that the problem of the massive industry is that the people do not visit anymore because the buyers are in their head office in Paris or London or wherever, but you need to go on the field. And the problem is that the people don't go enough on the field because they have so many things to manage in terms of purchasing task. So, I mean, the most important is to go on the field. And when you start getting interested in the life of people and understanding what they need, first, to make a better quality, because at the end of the day, that's the objective. And second, to support them to make a decent living. Yes, it's quite easy and not that expensive to improve the living standards and also the expertise of the people. But the only thing you need to do is to travel to the country of origin, discuss with the people and understand what they do. That's it. Alors, it does not look extraordinary, but very few people are doing that. Right. And that's what I try to do for so many years. And that's also my interest and passion in this.
So just making,
before the product, it's a human relationship.
Making direct contact. Now, in the last few minutes, I should take some questions from the audience because I haven't been very good at doing that. But let's take a look at some of the questions. A question from Woozy. First of all, thank you very much for the super chat, Woozy, who says, "Love the video series so far. Remi, as you worked at Givaudan, how would you say that your Grand Cru compare with something like Or Pure?" I don't know. Do you even want to answer that? I don't know.
You cannot compare. You know, it's just like if you compare a Nestlé good chocolate with the artisanal. No, you cannot compare. Or Pure was really a good try at Givaudan to go into this process, but still, you see, you remain into a very big machine that is producing tons and tens of tons of fragrance for massive brands. So you see, you cannot go at the level of details that I am focusing now, because now we are buying so little quantities, we don't care about the price. So you see, we don't have this financial objective that a Givaudan can have. So it's not a criticism, it's a different business model. And we want to remain artisanal with a very high also technological level, but they will never be able to have the quality of what we have, despite their billions of dollars that they are making every year, because it's too niche, it's too difficult to make, it's too specific, so it's impossible. But that's two very different
that's fascinating.
models.
A question from Natalia, maybe a kind of obvious question, but actually a good question. We should have asked it. She says, what's the difference? What is the distinguishing feature between a good vanilla and a bad vanilla?
You need to be able to smell first. You need to have a benchmark. So first you need to find one that will make you smell a good vanilla quality, and then you will be able to make the difference. But yes, it's not that easy because nobody knows the good vanilla. And I will tell you something. Sometimes I have a few friends, and when I go to Paris, sometimes I visit some big chefs because we exchange about these raw materials. And sometimes 2 or 3 stars Michelin chef, they don't know anything about vanilla, and they buy a very poor vanilla because they never get interested into and probably they didn't have the right suppliers to provide the good quality beans.
So when you smell a good vanilla and a bad vanilla, what could you say? What are the main difference? Is it a question of complexity?
No. You have some off notes that you can have in the vanilla, which has not been cured the right way, that you can immediately identify. And if you want to smell some and to taste some good vanilla, you can visit Rollinger in Paris, who has a good expertise in this kind of products, and where you will have good vanilla quality. Probably in London you have, Dariush, I don't know, but yes, you have some experts in probably in the main cities.
Maybe, but again, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on that. This is a kind of general question from Rachel, who says, does your company work with any wild harvested materials? I mean, I guess that's kind of going back to what we were talking about with myrrh last time, because that just grows wild, doesn't it?
Yeah, exact. Yes, you still have some materials in perfumery in general, which are coming from the wild. You can talk about the tonka beans. All the tonka beans that you can find are coming from the wild. The cyst and labdanum, so are also in Spain coming from the wild. Myrrh and olibanum are coming from the wild. So yes, you still have a few materials. Ambre gris, of course, is coming from the wild. Yes, and so yes, you still have some raw materials which are not cultivated, but which are collected from the wild. Yes.
No, brilliant. This is from Playtendo, who says, do all fragrances with vanilla turn dark over time? And how long does it usually take for the liquid to start turning darker? Do you find that vanilla perfumes go dark over time?
Alors, first, you need to say that most of the perfume contain vanillin. So vanillin is transparent, first.
Okay.
Second point is that you need to know if you know that most perfumes, you put artificial color into the perfume, which is not which is not the case of Les Indemodables, Dariush. In Les Indemodables, the color of the perfume is the color of the ingredient. That's it. And probably you can show Vanilla Van which look like a old rum. This is the color of vanilla, and this is the color of cocoa.
I haven't got it here, but yes, okay, duly noted. No artificial colors.
Yes, you see, if you look at many fragrances, you have a purple color or rosy color, so it's artificial color. So it's not a good, difficult to know.
So, but does vanilla turn dark with time?
Of course, all the black extract you see, Dariush, the cocoa is black also, the extract that you have.
Yes.
So you have some extract which are very dark and that will change the color of the perfume if they are used in sufficient quantity. And yes.
So they get darker and darker as the perfume gets older. That was the question.
Alors, okay. It should not, because basically we have some tests to really make sure that the color will not change too much with time. Of course, if you keep it 10 years and if you keep it under the sun, but I would say that in normal conditions, your perfume should not change that much of color.
Okay. No, that's interesting. Because I think a lot of people find that some of theirs do change color. Let me take another question. Again, a more general one from EcoJog, who says, could you give any advice for people on how to improve their nose?
That's like tennis, huh? You need to practice and to play, Dariush. Every Sunday or 2 or 3 times. You need to smell and you need to taste and you need to work. It's a muscle. So you really need to train it, just like when you go to the gym or to the fitness place. Smell everything you can smell, and take some notes. That's important. And go to sometimes olfactive session. There are some now more and more in the big cities where you can have this kind of olfactive training session. And yes.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's not just the smelling, but it's also the thinking about it. You've got to kind of think about what you're smelling.
You can explain maybe, Dariush, because you did that work. So
say again, sorry.
No, I mean, you did that work of improving your nose, over the years. So how did you?
It's if I did, then I think I would say that it's work that never stops. You know, I'm always sort of impressed, even by very, very, very experienced perfumers, very, very successful perfumers, that say to me that sometimes they even have a day where they will smell something and their brain has just completely gone, and somebody will say to them, you know, but it's, I don't know, it's patchouli or something, and they think, oh my goodness, you know, why didn't I get it? It is a question of practice. This isn't a question, but I enjoyed this comment, so I share it with you. It's from Ashfaq, who says that you need to start doing an ultrasound extraction of agar wood. and then he says the vanilla extraction process would seem easier in relation to that. Do you have you made an oud material?
No, I think we could make a trial on the distillation waste. That could be interesting. To try to find something a bit different from the. But you see, agar wood has been such a marketing stupid story that every brand was claiming, and nobody was using the real agar wood because it's so expensive. So no, that's not an ingredient that really attract me for the time being.
No.
But probably might be interesting to work out on the distillation waste of the agar wood.
Oh, that's fascinating. So we heard it here first. If you do make it, we want to smell it here first on this channel. The Atelier Oud special.
Yes.
Remi, as always, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for all of the interesting insights. Thank you for all of the interesting thoughts. Thank you for the transparency and the honesty. And thank you to you, all of you, for watching and for being such a thoughtful and engaged. Oh, I was starting to say goodbye, but I'm going to take this one question just because of who it's from. Because we have got, I'm guessing it really is the people behind Parfumo, which is becoming a very, very important site for information. What's the question here? Thank you very much for watching, by the way. Are you worried that perfume is becoming more and more about technical things like performance, as if they were technical devices, and that the artistic aspect is being lost? You have 5 seconds to answer that question, Remi.
Yes, artificial intelligence, but I think it's good because it will leave room for the people who are still doing this kind of artisanal work. And no, I'm not afraid about that. It's just to the people to identify what is industrial and what is more authentic. But it's like for everything we eat or we drink, that's the same kind of selection that we need to do with what we buy. Basically.
And a good note on which to end. Hopefully we'll be able to do episode 5 again before too long. But for now, thank you very much for your time. Thanks everybody for watching, and stay tuned to social media for details of the next broadcast coming up. Take care, folks. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.